Parshas Pikuday, Tavshin Pei Hey. We shall begin from the beginning of the Parsha. Perek Lamed Ches, chapter 38, Pasuk Chav Aleph, verse 21. Eilef Kudei HaMishkan. These are the accountings of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. Mishkan HaEdus, the tabernacle of testimony. Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe, that was counted by the word or at the command of Moshe. Avodas HaLevim, the work of the Levites, B'yadi Samar, in the hand of Isamar ben Aaron HaKohen, the son of Aaron the Kohen. Okay, so what does it mean these are accountings of the Mishkan? What do accountings mean? So as we're going to read soon, we actually are having here an accounting of the monies.
Financial report.
Right, a financial report, exactly. And the accounting of the precious materials, precious materials that were given, there's going to be an accounting. And this accounting was Pukad Al Pi Moshe. It was accounted by the word of Moshe. At the word of Moshe means by his command. He is the one who commissioned this accounting, this financial report. And then the Torah continues, Pasuk Chav Beis, verse 22, V'tzala ben Uri ben Chor l'matei Yehuda, V'tzala the son of Uri, the son of Chor of the tribe of Yehuda. Asa is kol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe, did everything that Hashem commanded Moshe. V'itay, and with him, Ahaliah ben Achisamach l'matei Dan, was a man named Ahaliah, the son of Achisamach, from the tribe of Dan. Charesh v'chayshev, a carver and artist. V'roi came an embroiderer, bat cheles in they translate this cheles as turquoise wool, or bargaman, purple wool, v'tailas, red wool, v'tailas hashani, scarlet wool, red wool, uvashesh, and with linen. Okay, now, so we're going to read a couple of psukim now, just going, and the psukim are numbers. So kala, and actually also what some of what the materials were used for. So Pasuk Chav Daled, verse 24. Kala zahav, all the gold, ha'asri la malacha, that was used for the work, v'chol melechas ha'kodesh, and all the work of the sanctuary, vayizabat tenufa, and the offered up gold was teisha ve'esrim kikar, 29 kikar. Kikar is a weight, I believe. It's a weight, yeah. And here they call it a kikar. In another place, I've seen the word talent, talent, a talent. It's a type of a weight. So 29 kikar, ushva me'os ushloishim, and 730 shekel coins, the shekel HaKodesh, in the shekel of the sanctuary. So it tells us this was the amount of gold. V'chesed Pikuday ha'eda ma'as kikar, and the silver of those that were of the accountings of the assembly was 100 kikar. Ve'elef ushva me'os v'chamisha v'shivim shekel b'shekel HaKodesh, 1,775 shekel in the shekel of the sanctuary. Bekel al golgoilis, a beka means a coin per head. Machasis ha-shekel b'shekel ha-kodesh, each coin was a half shekel of the shekel of the sanctuary. L'chol oivar la-pekudim, for everyone who passed through the counters. B'ben esr mishon of amal, from 20 years and up. L'sheish mayos elef v'shloishas halafim, v'chamesh mayos v'chamishim, of or from 603,550 people. In Parshas Kisisa, we have that when the counting of the Jewish people is done, how is the counting done? Each person gives a coin. What was that coin? It was a half shekel coin. These are the half shekel coins that we're talking about here that comprise the kesef, the silver that was donated towards that was used towards the construction of the Mishkan. Now here it tells us what it was used for. Vayehi ma'as kikar hakesef, and the 100 talents of silver, lotsekes, they were to pour, eis adnei hakodesh, the sockets of the sanctuary, eis adnei hapareches, and the sockets of the curtain, ma'as adonim lema'as kikar la'adin, 100 sockets from 100 to 100 kikar, which means a kikar per socket. And the 1,775 coins, they used that to make the hooks for the pillars. The tzipa rashem v'chishakaisam, and used the silver to cover their tops and to make a band around them. Now it comes to the copper. The copper that was raised up was 70 kikar. 2,400 shekel. Vayasba, and what was the copper used for? He made with it as adne pesach mayed, the sockets of the opening of the tent of the Mishkan itself. Beis mizbach hanachoshes, the copper altar. Beis michbar hanachoshes shaloi, and the copper netting that it had. Beis kokle mizbach, and all the vessels of the altar. Beis adnei achatzer saviv, the sockets of the courtyard all around. Beis adnei shara achatzer, and the sockets of the gate of the courtyard. Beis kol yistais hamishkan, all the pegs of the Mishkan. Beis kol yistais achatzer saviv, and all the pegs of the courtyard all around. Okay, so here's the report. We have the amounts, we have what they were used for, and this was the accounting that Moshe Rabbeinu commissioned.
But Torah never mentioned about somebody who actually treasurer.
Nope. It says it was Moshe was a treasurer.
He
was in charge of all the money.
okay.
Now,
Because he specified who did it.
Excuse me?
Two people were responsible to build.
Who were responsible to
This is
build,
his name, but
and I think he had help doing the counting, but at the end of the day, the money was deposited by him. All the materials and the monies were deposited by him, and they came to him for whatever they needed. Now, there is some background here to this commissioning. Why did Moshe commission this accounting? So the Medrash actually asks the question. The Medrash says, "V'lama asa imam cheshbon." Why did Moshe need to make an accounting with them? HaKadosh Baruch Hu yisparach shemaim aminoi, shemer lechin avdi Moshe b'chol beisi nemanu. This is not a pasuk here, but we have a pasuk in a different place where Hashem says about Moshe, "In all my house, he is the most faithful and trusted servant." So it was pretty clear that Hashem trusted Moshe, and therefore, why did Moshe have to make this accounting? Why did Moshe say, "Let's go and make an accounting in front of everyone"? Ella, rather. Moshe heard the Letzonim, the scoffers, the mockers of the Jewish people talking behind his back.
okay.
Shenemar, as it says, the Torah tells us a couple of weeks ago that we read that after Moshe, the way the Torah lays it out is, and I guess it started at that point, but that after Moshe came down the second time, meaning after he came back down from Mount Sinai the second time, davening to Hashem to convince Hashem not to destroy the Jewish people. And before he went up for the second tablets. So the Torah says that what Moshe Rabbeinu would do was he actually had a tent. And he took that tent and he set it up outside of the camp. And anybody who wanted to go speak to Moshe went there. That was his place. That was his meeting place. But what happened every day is that when Moshe would leave the camp to go to that tent, everybody would watch him. They'd come out of their tents and stand at their tents and watch him go. And they would see how when Moshe came to the tent, that a pillar of cloud would come down, stand in front of the opening to the tent, and that was the Shekhinah, the divine presence of Hashem, and Hashem would speak to Moshe at that point. So everybody would watch as Moshe went to his tent, and they saw that the pillar of cloud representing Hashem came down, and they bowed. So the Medrash focuses on the pasuk that says, "V'hibitu achrei Moshe," and they looked after Moshe. They basically watched as he went to the tent. Okay, umayu omrim. What were people saying when he was doing that? Maybe they were just quiet. No, it doesn't seem that way. It seems the Medrash seems to assume, or the Medrash is kind of asks, what were they saying? There is a assumption or knowledge that they didn't just like stand there quietly and watch. There was people, they were talking as he did that. So the first opinion cited, that there were people who would say, basically, look at Moshe Rabbeinu. He walks to the tent, Hashem comes to speak to him. That's amazing. That's unbelievable. that a human being could just, basically has his set time. He goes to the tent. Hashem comes. That's amazing. That's unbelievable. Then a different sage, Rav Chama Amar, says they said, which could probably mean, some people said this and some people said the following. Chame kadal divrei da Amram. Look how thick the son of Amram's neck is. Moshe's father was Amram. And these people who the Medrash is citing or quoting called him Ben Amram, the son of Amram. Doesn't sound very respectful. And they say, look how thick his neck is. Look how he looks very healthy. He looks very, he looks in very, very good shape. And his friend says to him, Adam sheshalad al malechas hamishkan, the man who has complete control over the construction of the Mishkan. He's got his hands on all the money. You're not going to wonder that as to how he became rich? Meaning the way that Moshe appeared to these people, he appeared like a rich man. A rich man, especially in the times of the Chumash, being on the heavier side was actually considered more desirable, more attractive, and it was a sign of wealth. It's a sign that you had enough money to take good care of yourself. And so one would say to his friend, he'd say, "Look at Moshe, man; it looks pretty good." And his friend would say, "Well, what do you expect? He's got his hands on all the money. You don't think he's got his hands on all the money? And then you want to know why he's rich?"
Well, this is what I ask you. This is people who actually have access to account. Usually suspect he makes some benefits from this.
Well, it depends who it is.
No,
And
but
maybe
it's always. This is never.
Well, guess what, Arkady?
Even
Arkady,
suspected.
But you're working backwards. The Medrash wonders why Moshe needed to show that he was upright. And the answer is because he heard people accusing him. So the Medrash sounds more like it's from the point of Moshe, when he hears the accusations, he wants to make sure that those accusations are proven wrong. No one should be able to say anything about it.
The question, why is they accusing? What, he did not say anything about his always.
So why they accuse him? So according to the Medrash, they accused him because he looked kind of healthy. Okay, now I'm going to tell you something.
This reason?
If you just read the Medrash, right, you could learn that, by the way, let me just finish the Medrash. When Moshe heard this, Moshe said to them, Chayechem, by your lives, Nigmar HaMishkan, the Mishkan is going to be finished, Eten Lechem Cheshbon, I'm going to give you an accounting. Therefore, so after it was all over, he said, okay, let's make the accounting. These are the accountings of the Mishkan. So if you read the Medrash really starts off saying Moshe is trustworthy. No reason to make an accounting. But once Moshe heard people talking, he said, okay, I'm going to show you that I'm on the up and up. Now, so why did they talk? So, if we want to be a little cynical or a little bit, instead of saying that, oh, everybody takes money, we could also say, oh, there is always people out there criticizing other people. There are always people out there criticizing even the biggest rabbis. That's another way you could look at it. There are always people looking to find some kind of excuse to criticize leadership. That's also been around for many, many years.
But particularly for a financial issue.
It's an excuse. It could be a good excuse. Okay. But again, we're talking about Moshe here. So the question is, it doesn't say Moshe just did it because, on his own, he wanted to make sure no one said anything. If no one said anything, the assumption would be everybody trusts him, and there's a good reason to trust him. Good reason. Hashem speaks to him. You realize that these people are saying this about Moshe, right? As he's walking to the tent where Hashem is about to speak to him, and they all see that Hashem is going to speak to him. So is Hashem going to speak to a Ganef? Hashem going to speak to a thief?
But at the same time, they suspect him.
But I'm saying, but you're saying that, especially with this, especially with that. I'm trying to say that the point here is there's many reasons to say, come on, come on.
No reason.
This is just made up accusation. This is just people looking to criticize. These are people. There's always people out there criticizing authority. But Moshe Rabbeinu still said, I'm going to make the accounting. And according to the wording of the Medrash, he heard them. He heard them. Now, maybe it means he found out. I don't know. But you just read the words, he heard them, which would sound like, he's within earshot of these people, and they don't care. Okay, so maybe it doesn't mean that literally. Maybe he found out about it. Maybe. But okay. So I want to tell you something. This Sefer here, the Ber Yosef, he makes your point. He makes your point. He says that there's got to be something more to it here, that they made the accusation. It's more than just an ek. There's got to be something more. There's got to be something that's really leading them to be able, again, it's wrong for them to say that about Moshe Rabbeinu. To talk like that about him. It's wrong. It's disrespectful to Moshe Rabbeinu. But again, were they just, like you say, just doing it out of the blue? Because they just like being critical of authority? All right, so here is what the Ber Yosef says. Okay, you ready? It's an interesting explanation. And he says like this. I'm going to ask you a question. Were the Jewish people wealthy or not? The Jewish people here in the desert, were they wealthy or not?
Some of them wealthy.
How?
They receive a lot of things from Mitzrayim.
So why is it some? It should be everybody. Everybody did it. Everybody borrowed the money. Everybody was told to do it. So not just some, it should be everybody. Maybe some more, some less. But everybody, the Gemara says everybody walked out of Mitzrayim with a lot of money.
No, I believe in even Mitzrayim they have some hierarchy.
Well, no. maybe. But the hierarchy in Mitzrayim, if you were a slave, you didn't have too much. And if you were somebody who was in the hierarchy, that means you were probably, maybe you didn't even get out of there alive. Maybe you were from those who died during Choshech. But the people, the slaves who left, they left with a lot of stuff, like you said. They took the gold and silver. Okay. So you said some, and I said everybody. One exception. One person did not leave rich.
One person?
One person did not leave rich.
Left poor?
Yeah.
Moshe.
How do you know?
Why no? Because he is one. Who else?
Who else? Okay. Can you give a better reason?
Reason? No, I believe he is moral. Is moral idea. The
answer is
not.
Is the Torah says
not,
that when everybody and the Gemara points this out, the Medrash points this out. What does it say in a couple of weeks ago? We read that when they're about to leave, what was Moshe busy doing? Before they left, Moshe Rabbeinu was busy with something. Moshe Rabbeinu was looking for the remains of Yosef. Remember that? It says when Moshe left, Moshe took the remains of Yosef with him because Yosef had made them promise that they'll take him out. The problem is when they were about to leave, nobody knew where it was, where Yosef's remains were. So Moshe, the Medrash says that while everybody else was going for gold and silver, Moshe was looking for the bones of Yosef.
But there was in the water.
Yeah, but it took him time to find it.
No,
You had to find it, had to bring it up.
But he was only one who looking for.
That's what Medrash says. It was him alone. It was him alone doing it. So basically, and if he had help, maybe a few people, but I'm saying and the Medrash points this out. The Medrash says is that Hashem said that when everybody else became rich, you were busy doing this very important mitzvah, even more important mitzvah than, getting rich was a mitzvah too. But you chose not to get rich to find the remains of Yosef. I'm going to reward you. I'm going to make you rich. Moshe eventually became rich. Why? How is that? So the Medrash points out that when Moshe Rabbeinu was about to go up the final time, the third time, to get the second tablets, and not get the second tablets, but to come down with the second tablets, meaning the second tablets, Moshe was to carve them out and bring them up, and Hashem was going to inscribe them. And Moshe Rabbeinu then came down on Yom Kippur when the Jewish people saw the luchos were inscribed, the Torah was again on it, that means that they were forgiven for the sin of the golden calf. But Moshe was to basically, carve out the tablets and bring them up to Shemayim, to heaven. Okay, what did he carve these tablets out from? What did he chisel these tablets out from? What kind of material?
From stones?
Nope, not just stones. It was actually from. Hold on. I thought I saw what kind of stone it was. It doesn't say it here. But basically, it wasn't just rocks. It wasn't just rock. It was a precious rock. It was what stone? Think what stone it was.
No, but there is different kind of rocks.
But I'm trying to tell you.
This mramor, I don't know. This is best.
That's good. That may be the best for rocks.
Yeah.
But the point is that actually it was carved out of a precious stone.
Precious stone?
Yeah, I can't remember. I know why I think I thought I knew which one it was, but it was a precious stone. Meaning there was this block of a precious stone.
Both tablets?
Yeah. Oh, the first ones came from heaven.
Yeah.
But the second ones that he made the tablets, and then they brought them up to Shemayim, and Hashem inscribed them. So it was a precious stone. Can't remember which one. I don't know why. I can't remember. And I thought it says somewhere, but it was a precious stone. Okay, so that means that Moshe had this stone, precious stone, and he carved out the tablets, whatever their exact shape was. Now, when you carve out something, right, you have the shavings that are left over.
Oh, yeah.
And Hashem told Moshe, that's yours. Those are yours. Those shavings are yours. That leftover is yours.
Where he took these precious stones?
That's a good question, too. Where did it come from? I'm not sure. But it was from a precious stone. Could be Hashem brought him this precious stone. And the remainder of it would make sense that way because Hashem told him he can keep the rest. So basically Hashem brought him this stone and Hashem tells him the rest is yours. And that's how Moshe became a wealthy man. It was from the leftover of the luchos. That precious stone made Moshe a rich man. Now,
this is from
Medrash. Okay, made him a rich man. And the Medrash says, Hashem said, because you didn't become wealthy like everybody else, this is how you're going to become wealthy. Now, so now the Ber Yosef wants to suggest like this. Ber Yosef wants to suggest that, if it says Moshe became wealthy, right, that means that it became recognizable that he became wealthy, right? He didn't just have this, does wealthy mean that, so now he had all these precious stones and that was it, he was just wealthy? Maybe. But the Ber Yosef wants to suggest like this. Okay, so Moshe is told by Hashem before the third set of 40 days and 40 nights of going up to heaven. Hashem says to Moshe, Psalacha, shtei luchei savonim. Carve out, chisel out the two tablets. Okay, Moshe carves them out. Moshe becomes wealthy. He goes up on Mount Sinai. He goes up to Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. Comes down again 40 days later with the luchos. Shortly after that, tells everybody what Hashem told him. It's time to donate the materials. We're going to make the Mishkan. And within a couple of days later, the work begins. The work begins. Okay. So now, the Ber Yosef wants to say Moshe became wealthy right before he went up. Right? Did anybody know how he became wealthy? Did anybody know that he was able to keep the remainder of the precious stone? Did anybody know that?
Probably not.
He wants to say no. Okay. So Moshe goes up, he comes back down. But now he's a wealthy man. And he wants to say, and now it became recognizable that he was a wealthy man. Before, they didn't see him as a wealthy man. But now they see he's a wealthy man. When they say, look how healthy he looks, they really mean to say, look, we see on Moshe, he's a wealthy man. What happened? All of a sudden, he became wealthy. From what? So his buddy says, what do you mean from what? All the money from the Mishkan goes to him. So what do you think? So that's how the Ber Yosef says, the basis the starting point, the basis to make this accusation was a very good question. How did Moshe get so wealthy so fast? He used to be a poor man. He didn't have anything because he didn't go ahead and get the money from anybody. He didn't get the money from Mitzrayim. And now all of a sudden, he's a rich man. Now we know he's a rich man because we know that he got these precious stones. But nobody else, the other people didn't know that. And therefore, and all of a sudden they notice, all of a sudden he's a wealthy man. How'd that happen? The answer is, hey, well, you have your hands on all the money from the Mishkan. What do you think? So Moshe hears this, and Moshe says, okay, we're going to make an accounting. But he's following your point that this is something like, just out of the blue because they're just making an accusation out of the blue. So he wants to say it's not just out of the blue. There's a basis for it. It's not just out of the blue. But you know what? A lot of times, conspiracy theorists base their theory on a question. They have a question. They have this question. It's a good question. And now because of this question, the answer must be our theory. Must be that. Because they have a question, and it seems to be a good question. Oh, and I'll give you a good answer. What's a good answer? My theory, my conspiracy theory. So this was the conspiracy theory about Moshe. They saw Moshe was all of a sudden rich. How's that? They don't know how. The answer must be that he's sticking his hand in the cookie jar, that he's taking money from the treasury. And Moshe says, and Moshe hears about this, either from them. I mean, the wording of the Medrash is Moshe heard them talking, but Moshe hears about it. Moshe finds out about it, and he says, "We're going to do something about it." So that's one approach here. I would like to suggest that what happened here was something a little bit different, and that perhaps this whole thing about look how healthy he looks. Oh, what do you think? How do you think he became a rich man? They weren't serious. It was a joke. It's a joke.
Who said?
I'm suggesting what happened here was that it was a joke. These two people talking.
Just only two people?
Whoever it was, a few people. It wasn't the majority of the Jewish people talking like this.
There's no serious, okay.
There's no, like, I'm not going to say the whole Jewish people are saying this, right? You heard some people saying it, and you know how they're saying it was a joke. It wasn't a nice joke. It was a poor taste. It was a tasteless joke. It was a joke. Look at Moshe Rabbeinu, looking pretty good. What do you think? He's got his hands on the money. It was what we call a tzanis. It was a joke. But there's a problem. Because jokes, after a while, if they're said over too many times, people start believing them. And I want to give you an example of this. Give me the example. Back in Bereshis, Parshas told us. The Torah says, Ela told us, Yitzchak ben Avraham. These are the generations, the doings, the happenings of Avraham, son of Yitzchak, son of Avraham. Avraham Haylis Yitzchak. Avraham gave birth. Avraham bore Yitzchak. Avraham gave, Haylis Yitzchak. Avraham bore Yitzchak. So the question is, you just said it's Yitzchak the son of Avraham. Why do I have to say Avraham was the father of Yitzchak? Why you say that? So Rashi brings down a medrash that says the Leitzanei Hadar, Leitzanim, the same word. The scoffers of the generation, are you Oimrim? They were saying, Me'avimelech nis abra Sarah. That Avimelech made Sarah pregnant. That child isn't Avram's, it's Avimelech's. And why? Because that we have the story of when Avram was in the land of the Plishtim, Avimelech took her. And it was after that, shortly after that, after that story, the Torah says, and Sarah conceived. So the Letzanim, the scoffer, is saying, you know how she became pregnant from? From Avimelech. Because she was by Avimelech for a night, and now here she is, and she's pregnant. It's obvious. It's obvious. So what did Hashem do? Hashem said, I'm not going to let this kind of talk happen. Tsar HaKadosh Baruch Hu clasped upon him Shal Yitzchak, Daimel Avraham, V'amru HaKol, Avram Ha'ilidis Yitzchak. Hashem made Yitzchak look exactly like Avraham. So that anybody saw that child said, we know who his father is, and there'd be no more questions. So the commentator of the Beis HaLevi has a question like this. This is his question. His question is on two words. The Medrash calls these people who said these things Leitzanei Hadar, the jokesters, the mockers of the generation. So the Beis HaLevi says that the word Leitzani, as serious as Leitzanis is, the whole idea of scoffing, making fun of something, he says, Halohem Rishei Hadar, they are the evil people of the generation to say such a thing. So why are we only calling them the Letzanim, the jokers, the scoffers, the mockers? So he says that, you know what? They never meant it. They never meant it to say that she was really pregnant from Avimelech. Because he says, what's the point of saying that? What's the point? What are you trying? What's the point of saying it? Let's say she did become pregnant from Avimelech. It's not a miracle? Still a miracle. She's 90 years old. She had no children. Avram already had children. He had already had Yishmael. So that Avram can have children, he already did that. Sarah never had a child. She's 90 years old. That's how old she was by Avimelech. So, she became pregnant from Avimelech. And what? And what's the point? Like you say, just to stuck to stupidity? It's a miracle either way. So what makes you say it's a miracle more than Avraham? And by the way, the miracle is more from Sarah's part than from Avraham's part. So therefore he says it was a joke. What kind of joke was it? Listen to this. I call it a Yiddish joke. Because it's not like you say something funny, but you say something like in a clever way. There are people are saying like this. Of course, Sarah was Sarah's carrying Avram's child, no question about it. But the fact that it happened after Avimelech kidnapped her means that the suffering that she went through by being kidnapped by Avimelech, that cleansed her, that made her more pure, and because of that merit, that was the final merit that made it that she should conceive a child.
Like indirect?
Indirect. Okay? Indirect. And not saying her. Of course it's Avram's child. And by the way, another point about Avimelech was, the Torah says that Avimelech was punished by Hashem, right, when he had Sarah, that all the body openings closed up. And this was not a secret. So he couldn't even made her pregnant. That's another point. So the point is, no, they weren't trying to say that he's the father, but rather they're saying it was because Avimelech, she suffered through Avimelech, that suffering was the final merit that allowed her to become pregnant. But how did they say it? They said she became pregnant from Avimelech. A very, a clever way of, a distasteful, clever way of saying something. And he compares it to the following. Listen to this analogy he gives. I don't know if he just, he says it's like somebody people were to say, oh, so-and-so, Chaim, He built his house from butter. Huh? Built his house from butter?
What was it?
What?
From what?
Butter.
Bottom.
Butter. You know what you spread on bread?
Okay.
So they said, people say, Chaim built his house out of butter. What is that supposed to mean? You know what it means, says Beis Halevi, when they say that? He's a butter merchant. He made a lot of money from selling butter, and now he had enough money to build himself a house. So it's a clever way of saying it. He built his house out of butter. You can imagine in Yiddish it would sound really good. But it's a clever way of saying something. Now here they were being clever also, but being distasteful. But says the Beis Halevi, the problem is that the problem here was, let me read you the words. Okay, so therefore, you know why they're called the Leitzane Hadar? Because they're not making an accusation. It was a joke. It was a line. It was a quip. The problem is, after a while, it's going to be forgotten that it was a joke, and people will start thinking that it's the truth. Because these kinds of lines, these kinds of jokes, these kinds of quips, they can take on a life of their own. Therefore, Hashem said, what Hashem do? He made Yitzchak look completely like Abraham. There's nothing to talk about. I like to suggest that's the same thing here. When they said, it's not the exact same thing, but it's the same. I'm trying to borrow the same idea. When they say about Abraham, now again, why are they making jokes by Moshe Rabbeinu? Why are they making jokes about Moshe Rabbeinu? I'm saying because, unfortunately, there have always been people who can be somewhat disrespectful, even to the greatest Torah leaders. But they weren't accusing him of stealing. It was a joke. Oh, look, Moshe Rabbeinu he's looking good. He's looking very healthy. So a friend said, "Was meinst du? What do you think? He has his hands on the money." It wasn't serious. It was a line. It was a joke. It was a sharp line, back and forth. But Moshe Rabbeinu understood that those lines, those kinds of comments, even as a joke, even on a Latzanis, if they get repeated too many times, they are passed on too many times, people are going to think it's true or become suspect. And therefore, Moshe went ahead and he made this accounting. So the Ber Yosef learns that it was a real accusation, and a real accusation based on something that stood out to them, and not just how healthy he looked. But as the Ber Yosef says, they had a question: how did he become rich so fast? How all of a sudden did he become rich? Where did it come from? And I like to suggest that it wasn't a real accusation; it was a joke. But at the same time, jokes can turn into the truth after a while by people, and therefore Moshe had to nip it in the bud. He had to take care of it right away, and he said, as soon as everything's done, we're going to make an accounting. Have a wonderful evening.
But